After 20 years of teaching people to shoot professionally, 6 of those owning my own indoor range and gun store, I have heard some tremendously horrendous advice. And unfortunately, it typically comes from husbands or boyfriends, sometimes fathers of female shoppers for guns. They're just getting into it, or they're getting their permit and they're looking for what gun they should have. And that is just an absolute recipe for disaster. So today I'm going to talk about the top 5 worst gun recommendations that I've heard and why.
This is a song about a strong girl.
First is going to be anything chambered in 40, 45, or 380, with the one exception of this particular gun, which is a Smith & Wesson Shield EZ. It is specifically designed so that it is easier to work the slide and the trigger and different things for people with either health reasons or just not a whole lot of dexterity or strength in their hand. This is going to be a specific situational thing. However, generally speaking, 40, 45, and 380 are not going to be optimal choices for most women in most circumstances for self-defense. 380, why? Because we're not really getting anything with 380 that we can't get with 9mm. If recoil or really perceived recoil is an issue, we can change the load in a 9mm. There's lower recoil 9mm. There's just simply no reason to drop down that caliber. Plus, the guns that are typically chambered in 380 are going to fall into another category. And again, it opens us up to the issues with that category. And 40, because again, 40 is a solution for a problem that no longer exists. Okay? We can get the performance that we thought we were going to get in 40 when it was created out of current 9mm offerings, as long as you're getting a good quality defensive round like a Federal HST, a Spirit Gold Dot, some of the critical duty rounds, things like that. We gain nothing from a 40 caliber, but we lose capacity and we get recoil. So we lose manageability, we lose how quickly we can do follow-up shots. It is more difficult to shoot a 40 caliber as accurately as one could shoot a 9mm, and we gain nothing in that transfer. Last is going to be 45. Again, it's kind of the same thing as 40. We don't really gain anything with a 45 caliber handgun except additional recoil. We take a bigger hit on capacity. Yes, a bigger hole is a better hole, but again, with modern projectile technology, whatever increase in size we get much more increase in size when we accurately put those additional rounds we get in other calibers on it. So if I've got 745s that mushroom out to a certain size and they all hit, versus 15 or 16 9mm that mushroom out to size and all hit, I've still put more surface area into the target with the 9mm. I've done it typically faster, and I have a better chance of being accurate with the 9mm because I'm not fighting the recoil of the 45. So no 40s, no 45s, and no 380s unless a very specific circumstance exists. Nothing that is single action only. There is nothing inherently less safe about a single action only, a gun that is carried cocked and locked. There is nothing inherently less safe about this design of firearm. However, this design of firearm is going to be a lot less tolerant of your mistakes. So with a newer shooter, someone who is probably not going to go to hours and hours of training, who is not going to put in the time it takes to get the manipulation skills to a point where the margin of error is less, what you're doing is setting them up for failure. You're setting them up for a booby trap, basically, because all it takes is one time of not having that safety engaged properly, and then it doesn't take a whole lot for that to go off. So again, the single action onlys are not less safe, they're just less tolerant of our mistakes. And it's just something that I would consider for more of an advanced or seasoned or mature shooter. It's something where you really have to be comfortable, confident, and competent in your handling, your weapons handling skills in order to not get bit by that. So nothing in single action only. Shotguns. A lot of the choice on what gun to get is going to be dependent on what's the purpose. Is it for home defense, concealed carry? A lot of people will talk about the shotgun for home defense, and it certainly does have a purpose there. However, again, if we're talking about females, most females are not going to have the same upper body strength as the average male. So because of that, again, we're looking at additional recoil, severely diminished capacity, even with something that's set up for home defense with 5 or 7 rounds. That's still a relatively low amount, as well as it has to be manipulated. It's going to require 2 hands, so for holding back children or things like that. The pumping can get fouled if you're not well practiced. You can short stroke a pump shotgun. So while this is potentially a great home defense option, it may not be the best home defense option for all people. So most newer shooters, most women new shooters, this is going to be something you want to stay away from, at least in the beginning. Itty bitty guns, small guns. Smaller is not better. That's what she said. So the problem with this is going to be, people think women, especially guys, they think she's smaller, more petite, needs a smaller, more petite gun. That is not necessarily the case. And this is a simple physics equation. Every time the gun fires, it is a function of the mass of the firearm and the energy created by the round. The more mass, the less of that energy is going to be transferred to the shooter. So from a purely academic standpoint, the bigger the gun, the heavier the gun, the less recoil someone's going to feel. The other issue with this is whenever we can't get a full firing grip, whenever the pinky, or in this case, even with a magazine in, two fingers are hanging off, that's going to be a problem. It's going to feel like the gun's wanting to climb out of your hand. It's going to be very difficult to hold on to. Again, we're talking about a small gun. This one's a 380. Even something like this in 9 is going to be very snappy. It's very difficult to shoot accurately. I'm going to have almost no sights at all. So something this small, again, unless it's a specific application, we're going to want to stay away from. Same thing with this one, even though, I mean, this one's a double whammy. It's a single action only, and it's relatively small. A little bit bigger grip, but still that pinky's not going to have a good purchase, and I can't even really get a good second hand on there for recoil control. So itty bitty guns are typically not the best solution. Last and certainly not least, and the absolute positively worst recommendation you can give to any new shooter, but we see it, that sin committed to women more often than not, is going to be a small J-frame revolver, particularly an airweight style revolver. This is literally the worst configuration of a firearm for anyone to shoot, even a skilled shooter. Everything is working against the shooter with this particular design of gun. Almost no sights, very punishing recoil directed right into the web of the hand, only 5 opportunities to solve the problem. Those opportunities are going to come with a very long and heavy double action trigger pull. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to conceal because of the width of the cylinder. I could almost open up a second gun store with the J-frame revolvers that we have women come in and take our concealed handgun class, fire their first few rounds, or listen to us in class and decide that this is not going to work for them. The one benefit and where a revolver, a small J-frame revolver, may be a good option is if I'm in an environment where I wear heavy outer clothing a lot, coats, and I want to carry in a pocket. While we still would not recommend that this be carried in a purse without the trigger protected, it is a little bit safer for a purse type carry because it takes more energy to move the trigger. But if we're going to cover this as we should with a holster on the trigger, then we've eliminated that issue and can move to something else like a striker fire gun. Almost impossible to reload. We know that most gunfights, which are actually shootings, are going to involve anywhere from 0 to 3 rounds. Those are averages. There's bell curves on either side of that, right? There's the 0s and there's the 30s. So I know of multiple cases where people have been shot and hit multiple times in the face with a 38 revolver and drove themselves to the hospital. Every caliber is going to have those kind of anomalies. The problem is I want more than 5 chances to solve the problem. Another misnomer that we often hear on why people will recommend this to women, and this is their misogyny, not mine. Oh, well, you know, a semi-automatic's too complicated. You know, this you just pick it up and point and shoot. Or they're simpler, they don't break. Or there's no way she could, reload it. All of those are false. I've never seen any female ever walk in our place that when she walked in, couldn't rack a semi-automatic, left still not being able to. It is a training issue, not a strength issue. The problem is she's taking her gun advice from someone who probably shouldn't be giving gun advice, and as such hasn't been shown properly how to manipulate a slide. The other problem is you give something, even a Glock 26 or a SIG 365, you've got 10, 12, 15, 16 times to solve the problem before you ever have to start thinking about having to reload. So the reloading issue is a non-issue. Also, most people know revolvers do break, but when revolvers break, they're broke. There's no taking a mag and putting a mag in or immediate action or anything like that. When it's broken, and that's it. The other thing is, look, as far as complicated, when we're talking about women, you're talking about a creature that can drive down the road at 82 miles an hour, putting on mascara, talking on the phone, eating a biscuit and reading the newspaper all at the same time. So if you expect me to believe for 1 second that she can't do, that's gonna be a little difficult. So ladies, if you're watching this, if the guy in your life recommends any of these things, that's probably a good indicator that you need to seek professional. And just because he was in the military or he's your brother-in-law the cop or any of that stuff, those are actually probably the worst people to get advice from. Seek advice from a professional. Guys, stay in your lane, okay? You probably know a lot about guns, but you know a lot about guns that you like and things that work for you. If you haven't worked with women or people with disabilities or children or things like that, you're not necessarily going to be able to extrapolate your experiences to things that work with them. And look, I was married at one time. I know how difficult it can be trying to teach or help coach someone that you have a familiar relationship with. That's one of those times where you got a good excuse to come to the gun range, send her on one end with an instructor, and you go on the other end and do your thing. So again, shotguns, itty bitty guns, anything chambered in 380, 40, or 45, anything that's single action only, and for the love of God, please stop recommending women get small J-frame revolvers. No. So those are going to be the things that you don't want to tell the people you love. If you do, I don't know exactly what that says, but take it how you will. As always, be vigilant, be prepared. Y'all stay safe.